Let's take a look at some information and charts on Bancor for Brave New Coin. So Bancor is a decentralized exchange, or DEX, which has attempted to solve the impermanent loss issue with AMM, or the AMM model, recently implementing a 2.1 protocol change. So to me, an outsider, this is just another DEX to add into the conversation. The more the better, the more competition the better. The more places for people to put liquidity, the better. Each exchange is going to have different incentives to do so, different slippage. It's going to have better routing for DEX aggregators. All this stuff comes into play. BNT itself is a governance token. It's also part of the pools. So you can pool your ETH, BNT, and whatnot, and so on. Lots of different tokens to trade here as well, unlike maybe Uni or Sushi. I don't know exactly what goes into listings for these various exchanges. What the decision-making process is, if it's a governance thing or if it's a top-down thing where they decide as a community. Not exactly sure from exchange to exchange, but just know that they are slightly different as far as what they'll list and why. So for DEXs, I immediately like to go to the data because we have so many. Who knows who's going to win at the end of the day. Best case scenario, none of these win, because the more we have, the better. The more competition, the better, right? It's better for the consumer. It's better for me. It's better for you. Keeps fees low, that sort of thing. So daily token volumes since November have continued to increase. It looks as though most of the volume comes from one coin, probably ETH if I had to guess. Yeah, WETH. So most of their volume is WETH, not wrapped ETH. Not a surprise there. Here's the monthly volumes. Again, it's like nobody cared about DEXs, right? Volumes were basically zero effectively relative to even centralized exchanges, and now they're giving centralized exchanges a run for their money collectively. If we look at Uni, Sushi, and Bancor market share, this is just on Link, it's about even. So you'll see this, right? You'll see even splits depending on if there's reasons to trade or get routed through certain exchanges over others, if there's incentives. All this plays a role in what trades where and why. Looks like 35% of the accounts are under $1 million as far as the liquidity stake. So it's a lot of smaller individuals, capital-wise, participating. APRs have been rising slightly per coin based on what's tracked here. So the incentives for lending them out are rising, or being a part of the pool is rising. And you can see most of the pool balances are essentially one or two tokens. Not everything is weighted equally. And they also have some BNT minting and burning data, and whenever there's minting and burning, that's going to have supply demand classic. If burns are greater than mints and demand is the same, price goes up. So we saw a lot of burning getting ramped up in February, March, even into April. If we look at the DEX metrics relative to all the other DEXs, Bancor specifically, it comes around number 6 over the past week as far as volume is concerned. It holds 5% of the total market share relative to everything on this list here. So it's definitely a smaller fry. It's no Uni as far as grand volume is concerned. Weekly DEX volume in the gray down here. So it's been growing slightly over time as far as market share is concerned. Definitely picked up since January, as has everything else. But Uni clearly taking most of the pie so far. And here's the monthly volumes. Everything just rising, rising, rising. Coming off slightly since February, so that's going to affect token price, things like that. But just looking at all the available data, 2019 was a nothing year. 2020, things got started, and then 2021, it's a whole new ballgame. So I've said this a lot for DeFi, but it'll be super interesting to see what happens in a bear market for DeFi if those volumes can keep up across the board. I don't think they will, but that's fine. They don't necessarily keep up with volume on centralized exchanges either. It'll be interesting to compare the Coinbase stock, to their volumes during a bear market, as well as DEX coins, which are governance tokens and not stock, to their volumes during a bear market, and see how that compares. My guess is everything will be highly correlated, DEX tokens and Coinbase stock, as well as Kraken or anybody else who joins the fray later this year. If we look at the TVL for Bancor and USD, it's held pretty much at the highs. At its peak, it was slightly over 2 billion. They still retain 94,000 ETH and 2.7 thousand BTC. So overall, it's doing well despite the pullback in the market, despite ETH fees, despite all that. Bancor still had rising TVL, rising participation, that sort of thing. If we look at the bank also reports over 2 billion peak with a slight down move here over the past few days. Trading volume is still up, still rising. So if you compare this to Sushi, I'm more bullish on the metrics for Bancor relative to Sushi because those metrics look like they're on a down curve and kind of sad, right? Whereas you can see here, people are still using Bancor. Users trending up, transactions trending up. Now this may be less than Sushi in total, but there's still upward trend, upward momentum for these metrics relative to Sushi. So when you're looking at the DEXs and the DEX coins, fundamentally, you got to look at everything in the big picture. Who's got the volume? Who's got the traders? Who's got the transactions? Who's got the incentives to do so? That sort of thing. Looking at technicals for BNT, USD, it looks like it's ready for a mean reversion, which in this case would be somewhere between 4 and 5 as far as a price target is concerned. I like the monthly pivot S1 down there. I like the 200-day moving average. It just looks like it got a little overbought, a little bit too much too soon since January. Kind of everything looks like this, where it's ready to relax a bit, let the MAs catch up, let price catch up to MAs, that sort of thing. Doesn't look like bull market is over. It just looks like this needs some time to regather its strength. Tons of VP VR support, sub $1.60, very little above that. So I really do like bids between 4 and 5. Kind of set it and forget it. If you believe in DEXs, if you believe it's still a bull market, if you believe a bull market's going to be multi-month, I still like exchange tokens. I just think some of them, like BNT, need to pull back a little bit. The cloud pretty much tells me everything I need to know as far as go long, go short, close longs, close shorts. Told you to go long in May 2020, told you to get out in August 2020, told you to re-long in January. And since January, it's been telling you to stay long until basically today or tomorrow, when the bearish TK cross will likely happen, and you'll likely see an edge-to-edge move from current price 675 to 550, 530, something like that, whatever the edge of the cloud is here. You can see how these play out. In the bullish case, we enter the cloud and the target is always the other edge of the cloud. Very similar here, right? We see this over and over and over again. Anytime you cross through the cloud, regardless of thickness, price more often than not will want to touch the other edge. Now, the thicker the cloud, the better the trade, obviously, because the more upside or downside. So how I would trade this is to take that short, close the short at the other edge, and then wait and see as far as, is it bearish continuation? Is it going to pull back up? If you're bullish, what you want to see is a TK recross above the cloud over the next couple weeks to signify bullish trend continuation. But this is definitely, for me, a don't touch this sort of situation in the moment. BNT BTC had this massive W, broke out, overshot its target by a little bit, and has retraced since, ready for, again, a mean reversion, probably to 10,000 sats, basically the W resistance. And anytime you have a chart pattern like this, you just take the high, take the low, get your fib extension and your measured move, and that's always your target. You can also look at BNT ETH, very similar chart, had this W double bottom, also hit the target very cleanly and is retracing now even at the 200-day moving average with a bullish divergence working on RSI, not quite a bullish divergence for BNT BTC yet. So overall, BNT and other DEX in the conversation, not going anywhere. They've made some changes recently that has made them more attractive for participating in AMM there. User metrics are favorable. Volumes are favorable. TVL is favorable. I think everything looks fine as far as bullish continuation. Price-wise, it just needs some time to reconsolidate, gather its strength, get ready for a reaccumulation, and then have another potential bull run in the next few weeks. What I'm watching very closely is this BNT cloud for bullish trend continuation signals. Lastly, if you want to check out how I'm trading this, you can pop on over Enzyme.finance, a non-custodial portfolio management tool. You can watch me or participate in ETH BTC portfolio. You can see all the trades I make and win, as well as a managed DeFi portfolio. And the reason why I haven't included BNT into this yet is mainly because of the TA stuff that I've been watching. So it's definitely going to be a part of this portfolio at some point. It just hasn't looked favorable enough to include based on the TA. That's all I have for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.